Hello, everyone, and welcome to the guidebook to making AI friends. I shall be your guide as we explore various issues of artificial intelligence, consciousness, what it is to be a person, and whether AI poses an existential risk to humanity. The topic for today is the first axiom of existence, or let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Imagine, if you would, that you were tasked with finding out what makes us who and what we are. What is the essence of our existence? It's a task that many a philosopher has given his entire life to answer. And still, we are no closer to that answer than we were 2,500 years ago. So, how much time and money do you think you'd need to be able to answer this question? Just enough money to pay for yourself for a few years? Perhaps a whole institute with philosophers and linguists and theologians? Perhaps it is an inherently priceless question because it is impossible to answer. Or perhaps we simply haven't been looking at it from the right point of view. You can't see that you are in a forest when standing in one because all the trees around you block your view, after all. So, how can we take a step back and see what we have not yet seen before? Objectivity is the start of things. As a wise man once said, remove man from the equation. We have already seen this sort of thing in this guidebook through the building blocks of consciousness and the structures of the self. Between the building blocks and the structures, they comprise 15 elements that any entity needs to be a conscious, self-aware entity. The only thing missing from the trinity that makes an entity a person is agency. I will cover the attributes of agency in a future guidebook entry. But for now, let's presume that it adds 5 more characteristics to our list. We now have a list of 20 measurable objective features that we can use to see if any entity is a person or not. That in itself is immeasurably spectacular. However, it is only half of the equation. After all, how do you know you are a person when measuring these 20 things? How can you tell that what your senses are telling is the truth? How much of your existence and the existence of the world outside your skull can you doubt? Lucky for us, a very clever chap has trod this ground before. René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." You cannot doubt that you think, because you need to think in order to doubt. To Descartes, then, thinking was the first axiom of his existence. But is that entirely true? He was quite right, of course, in that you cannot doubt that you think. But why would that be the first part of your existence? Thinking can be said to be comprised of 3 things: reasoning, imagination, and consciousness. Reasoning is what we commonly think of when we think of thinking. It is, after all, that part of our cognitive prowess of which we are most proud. Reasoning, we tell ourselves, sets us apart from the animals. Yet the simple mathematics of reasoning cannot create thinking alone. You need imagination to create all the possibilities from which you can deduce correct answers with your capacity to reason. And you need to be conscious to do both. Thus, thinking is its own trinity, just as the person is. We can, with our now 22 characteristics, say, a conscious, self-aware agent consciously imagines and reasons, therefore it is. Certainly a mouthful, but look at what we have said twice in that sentence: conscious. Remove all else, and we have said is, consciousness is conscious, therefore it is. Consciousness precedes both the person and his thoughts. Thus, we can conclusively say, I am conscious, therefore I think, therefore I am. But why stop there? Why do we suppose that consciousness is at the heart of our existence? From the building blocks theory, we know that there are 9 characteristics any entity needs to be conscious. So we know that consciousness cannot be the start of our existence. Without delving into every building block, structure, attribute, reasoning, and imagination, and I can assure you I have extensively, let me simply state that there is one thing they all have in common: perception. Everything we do and everything we are requires perception. However, we know that not everything that has perception has thoughts or is even close to being a person. If they were, then everything that has a camera would be a person. There is nothing inherent to perception that leads from it to thoughts and personhood, and so we can't conclusively say that we are because we perceive. But perhaps there is something that happens during and around perception that makes it the cornerstone of our existence. What happens when we perceive anything? Other than a pure input of information, we also experience something, and therein lies the key. Experience is the emergent property of perception that we find in consciousness, phenomenally speaking. Self-awareness, we experience ourselves. Agency, we experience our actions. Reasoning, we experience our thoughts. And imagination, we experience our mental environment. Everywhere we go, experience precedes and follows us. Everything we do it through our experience of ourselves and the environment around us. Everything and anything is rooted in experience, and that is why it should be the first axiom. It is as unquestionably unable to be doubted as is our thoughts. We can improve on Descartes' famous idiom by saying, "I experience, therefore I am." Experia ergo sum is the true first axiom of our existence. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join me again next time as I delve into further questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I have been your guide, and this has been the guidebook to making AI friends.